Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookishrealm. Welcome back to another video if you've already been here, or welcome if you're new here. And since we're already at the beginning of this video, everyone go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, follow me on social media. If you're looking for a way to support the channel, go ahead and click down and right down there, Patreon, just to get this out the way early on. Yeah, fun. Okay, so as you can see from the title, we are here to talk about 10 more books that I think deserve a little bit more hype from Booktube. I've done one of these videos before. Did I watch that video before I sat down and filmed this one? Absolutely not. So I'm hoping, fingers and toes crossed, that I do not have any repeats or duplicates of that list. Is it irresponsible of me to do that? Absolutely, but here we are. So I have 10 books that I think deserve more hype from Booktube. If I'm not mistaken, all of these books have less than 100 reviews on Goodreads. 100 reviews and ratings on Goodreads. So people just are not reading them in general, not just Booktube. But I think they deserve a little bit more hype because these are books that I really enjoy. Some of these I have talked about before, but just in case you didn't know, here we are. So we're gonna start off our first one with a Black romance that is a new year type of holiday romance thing going on. So I randomly found this when I was looking for some new Black romance books that were, I guess, just focus on New Year's Day. Is it the S at the end? So I ended up finding The First 48 by J. Ashley. This is a new to me author. I haven't read any of her work since picking this one up, but I really did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. It is about a main character who wakes up in a hotel room and is super confused, has the letter next to her, and is basically like, hey, this is what's happened, and I really want to take some time to get to know you. So basically she had a one-night stand where she does not really remember this person, and he is absolutely enthralled by her, and he wants to take more time to get to know her. I think that there's so much to be said about the way that certain stigmas are handled in this book. I can't really say what they are because unfortunately, I think that it would spoil the book a little bit, so I'm going to refrain, but I'm going to say that it's done in a thoughtful and caring way. I thought that it was fun. I thought that it was fast-paced and engaging, and I know that consent is going to be an interesting thing for a lot of people to discuss in this one because in some ways it is dubious consent, but on the part of our hero, he did not realize how intoxicated she was and that she wasn't going to remember everything, and so he does detail everything explicitly. That way she doesn't feel like anything is being hidden from her. But for my first time reading this author, it was really good, and I'm looking forward to checking out more for work. Like I said, I ended up giving that one 4 out of 5 stars. The next one that I have is one that I actually read a while ago, and I don't think I've ever really talked about this one or recommended this one, but this is a queer Black romance. It is called Sweet Dark Rum, and it is by Cheryl N. Clark. It's super sensual. So if you're looking for romance books that have just this essence of sensuality to them, this is one that I definitely recommend checking out. This focuses on 2 characters, Zara and Erica, who end up meeting on this trip, and they spend time getting to know each other. Their chemistry is off the charts, and you can kind of see that throughout their conversation when they're having dinner. It is just, I mean, literally the sensuality oozes off the pages. It's beautiful, and we get to see them get to know each other, and I love this balance that we got with the characters, because you have one character that is very tied into her work life, very just wound up, not really used to breaking from a routine, and then we have a character who's very just easygoing, kind of carefree, very relaxed. And so having these 2 characters that are essentially like night and day, and figuring out how to effectively balance them because they're so strikingly different, was just a very wonderful job done on the on the author's end, if I can talk today. But I definitely recommend this one if you're looking for queer Black romance to check out, looking for something that's sensual and hot and steamy and shows these 2 characters really getting to know each other. I would recommend that. The next one that I have is a non-fiction picture book. It's biographical, and it is called Baba's Gift, A Persian Father's Love for Family. And this was actually written by the father's two daughters, Ariana and Christina, and they wrote it in honor of their father, who is traveling, in the context of the story, is coming from Iran to the United States without knowing anyone. And basically the setup of the picture book is that he's telling the story to his 6 daughters, and he's just detailing his experience of coming from Iran to the US and how that was for him, not knowing anyone, just to get better educational opportunities, and then how he was able to navigate being here in the United States. I definitely recommend this one for people who love intergenerational stories, stories about family, stories about immigration, about working against the odds. I think that the storytelling in this one was beautiful, and I loved that they did this as a kind of as a gift to their father, who had passed away since the creation of this book. It's just a lovely ode to him, and you can tell just how much he poured into his family and how much he wanted to create this better experience for his family. I adore this one. One of my favorite quotes, I'm going to look down, because one of my favorite quotes from this book is, when a child is delighted in, she finds herself delightful. So just when you pour that happiness and love into a child, that child in turn finds happiness and loves themselves. And one of the most beautiful quotes that I have read in a picture book, and this was a quote that he kind of, stood on and that he believed in. So shout out to them for their willingness to share this story with us. I think it was beautiful. So this next one is pretty interesting because of the fact that I gave this book 3.5 stars, but I wanted to put it on this list because I know a lot of people in the Booktube community, or at least the romance side of community, or I don't want to say a lot, but a few people have picked up Shay Sanders' books, and she primarily writes romance, but before she wrote romance, she wrote mysteries and thrillers. And so recently she dropped a book, I think this was sometime last year during the summer, she dropped a book, They Never Tell. And so I think that this is a side of her that deserves a little bit more attention because she's primarily known for writing romance. And I think that it's such a solid start that I wish more people knew about it. So this is a mystery slash a thriller that follows these 12 kids that are part of this elite group of Black families. And so essentially they've kind of made this pact that they will do anything that is necessary to make sure that their kids get the best education, that they go to the best schools, and that they're pretty much set for life. Of course, what ends up happening, and it's interesting because I feel like it was kind of modeled after W.E.B. Du Bois, the Talented Tenth, that's that same ideology, which is where I was like, this premise is pretty interesting. One of the kids ends up dead, and so we are spending the entire course of the book trying to figure out, okay, well, who killed this girl? This was written so well. Shay has a way of writing that I am completely obsessed with. I have read a good portion of her backlist, and I rarely rate anything below 4 stars. If I rate anything below 4 stars, it's usually a 3.5. She's a very, very good writer and deserves all the love and praise that she does get. I really, really do enjoy her books. This one, for me, stood out because I read mystery and thriller not as much as some people in the community, because I just read all over the place, but I don't read as much as other people in the community. But I am very picky about how mysteries and thrillers unfold, and whether the author can keep my attention in a way that I'm unable to figure out how the story is going to unfold. This one was so wild in the sense that I could not pinpoint anybody. At one point I was like, okay, anybody could have technically done this, because everyone had so many different secrets that they all would have had a motive to kill one of these characters. And so I was struggling really to put the pieces of the puzzle together until the very end, and it started to unfold. This does a lot of good things in terms of having conversations about sexual assault and grooming and those power dynamics that exist between teachers, professors, and students. And so I definitely would be mindful of that in terms of content warnings. But I think that for a switch over, which is not an easy thing to do, I know she primarily started writing mysteries and thrillers. That's where she fell in love with writing, but she's so well known for her romance. So to make a jump and switch to mystery and thriller, I didn't know how it was going to do, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. And I wanted to put it on this list because I want people to get the opportunity to really check out what she's doing in terms of mystery and thrillers, because she's so well known for her romance. But I really enjoyed that one as well. The next one that I have on here is one that I've talked about because it's been on one of my favorites lists. I think it was one of my favorites of 2022, and it's another picture book, and it's Black Eyed Peas and Hot-Caked Cheese. This is, first of all, the artwork on this one is absolutely beautiful. It is the most beautiful artwork, but it's about a little girl who ends up spending the New Year's Day with, once again, is it New Year or New Year's? Child, I don't know, but she ends up spending the day with her grandmother prepping for the New Year meal, and the rest of the family's not there yet. So while her grandmother's preparing these meals, she's telling her the significance behind each thing, like, why do we eat greens, why do we eat black eyed peas, why do we make hog-head cheese? And there's also these historical aspects of, in times of slavery, what were Black people doing, like what were they eating, what were they consuming? And I just thought it was so well put together. A lot of what we have here in the Black community, culture wise, you have to understand that with slavery, with so many different people from so many different tribes being brought together into one place, there was a stripping of culture in a sense. There are some things that are still very much so reminiscent of the past, but you're having to start over. And a lot of things that happen within the Black community during that time are not documented. Everything is just oral traditions, oral storytelling. And so, you know, we see that essence of oral storytelling being passed down from one generation to the next in this one, you know, explaining why we do these things. Like, because a lot of times you may do things, you're like, okay, we always do this, but then you don't, but why do we always eat black eyed peas? Like, I always knew, okay, you know, you cook black eyed peas on, you know, during New Year's, and it's kind of like, okay, but why? So, you know, as I got older, I understood and I learned why, and its relevance and importance to the Black community with a host of other traditions as well. But the artwork on that one is just it's beautiful. If you haven't picked that one up, you got to pick that one up. So the next one that I have is a book that is a part of the Wish series that come out of Scholastic. So they're typically written for kids in between the ages of 8 to 12, and they're used as kind of like stepping stones into young adult, and they cover a host of different themes. And this was my first one, and it's Pizza in My Heart. And I think I got this as an e-arc and just dove right into it. It was a really, really great read. So it focuses on a young girl by the name of Maya, and her parents run this very interesting restaurant that's kind of a cross between soul food and pizza. And I think it's called Soul Slice. This was kind of looked down like, yeah, it's called Soul Slice. So they run this restaurant called Soul Slice, and they decide that they're going to move. And they are opening up a new restaurant, so they're moving to a different area. And Maya is upset, which at that age, I could understand being upset, because you're moving away from everything that you know, everything that you're used to, and you're being uprooted into an area where it's kind of like, well, I don't have any friends here. And so we kind of follow her as she navigates going to this new school, getting involved in art club, and getting involved in helping her parents manage this new restaurant. And I love that there was such an equal balance of old and new in this one, because while Maya is making new friends, it's not like we just automatically are expected to forget about her old friends, which I think is really important, especially for a lot of like middle school readers who are going to be picking this up. I think middle school is one of the hardest transitions that kids go through, because you're not an elementary school kid, but you're also not a high schooler, so you feel like you're kind of stuck in between kid and teen, so you're tween, so you don't know what to do. And you know, this is usually the time for a lot of kids where you're hitting puberty and you're going through a lot of not just physical changes but emotional changes, and friendship dynamics are a huge part of that. And so what I really enjoyed and loved about this is that we weren't just forgetting the old friendship, because it was very, very important to Maya, but we were finding that balance between keeping in touch with the old and also exploring the new. And just the incorporation of like the artwork was also great, because it's very vital to Maya's character development. This was just a good read. It was my first time reading a Wish book. Granted, I read this one January of last year, so it's about time that I dive into another one, but it's well worth checking out if you're interested in books that are targeted at age groups 8 to 12, or if you have someone in your life that is between that age group that's looking for something that's a little bit more leaning towards a YA side, but not necessarily there yet. The next one that I have on this is a children's book that I read last year as well. It's called Lena and the Burning of Greenwood, a Tulsa Race Massacre survival story. So there's a series of books called Girl Survive, and they are written from kind of like a perspective where each girl is going through a significant historical event. And of course, from this one, we are learning more about the Tulsa massacre. I think these are great read alouds from the ones that I've seen in this one that I've read, and they provide great historical context for those who struggle with understanding historical events or find learning about historical events to be a little bit on the dry side. These, of course, take a little bit creative liberty, but for the most part, they are staying true to the events that happened. This was written not too long after the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre, and so I am looking forward to using this as a read aloud for my child in the future. And it's just a great way, like I said, to have open and honest discussions about historical events. Next one I have is a 5-star read for me. It was so good, and that is Emeka Morales and the Legend of Lala Chusa. This was so good, and I wish more people were talking about this one, and it doesn't have enough ratings or reviews on it, which is so disappointing. So it follows Omega and one of her close friends and her cousin, and Omega comes from a family that has magical powers, although it's not like appreciated the way that it used to be appreciated, and so they kind of keep to themselves, as anyone would when, you know, you kind of get ostracized for having magical abilities. Their magic is pretty cool. They're empaths, so they can perceive, and I believe, I don't know if it's manipulation, but it's, I know that they can read the emotions of those around them, but I think there is a manipulation aspect around it, if I'm remembering correctly. Essentially, Lala Chusa shows up unexpected, unannounced, and so they're like, okay, like, what is the mystery and the story behind this? This is where the story for me is just great, okay? There is a lot of discussion about grief in this book that I loved, about the different ways that people react to grief and how they process grief, and that sometimes grieving can turn into anger, and that is a valid feeling, because a lot of times I think people often associate grief with being sad, and not understanding that sometimes people are grieving and they're very angry, and rightfully so. And so through understanding where Lala Chusa comes from and the myth and legend behind her origin, they start to understand more what grief looks like. I think that this is one of those books where we see a supportive family. We don't have any family, I'm not saying we don't have any family conflict, but we don't have family members that are kind of like doing some off the wall type of stuff with the main character that is not easily resolved. I think we have very, very supportive family class. I just love the energy of family in this book. Like, strong family units is what I like, whether it is what we call a traditional, which I don't even like using that word, what we call a traditional family, or something that's a little bit different. I love strong family units in middle grade books, and we definitely get that in this. And the writing was perfection. The writing was beautiful. I'm sitting here talking about it, and now I low-key want to reread the book again, but it's good. If you have not read this and you're interested in any type of middle grade that has just paranormal and spooky elements to it, this is the one that I need you all to read now. The next one that I have on my list is Figure It Out, Henry Weldon, which is one that I ended up reading this year, which it just doesn't have enough reviews for my liking. This is another middle grade book that is just, it's mind-blowing, okay? I did not go into this book expecting to feel seen as an adult. It follows a main character by the name of Henry who struggles with math. She has a disability, which I'll put on the screen because I cannot remember it off the top of my head. She has a disability where conceptually math is just very, very difficult for her. I struggle with math so much when I was a kid. From elementary to high school, math just didn't, it just never made sense to me, and I struggled horribly with it. Literally, a teacher could tell me a concept and like we literally would do problems together. Now we get it, and as soon as I was released to do it on my own, I was like, I'm so confused about what I'm looking at. And there was a lot of traumatic moments that I have from dealing with math when I was in school, and a lot of teachers that were not really forgiving of how much I was struggling with math. And so we see that with Henry, who is going to a new school, and she is nervous about it, which is rightfully so. And she ends up meeting new people, and it's very interesting because not only are we learning more about Henry's disability, but as she makes these new friends, we figure out that she has this conflict with these friends. She doesn't have a conflict with them. It ends up being kind of an internal conflict because they have a conflict with her sister. And it's kind of like, okay, friends or family, like who am I supposed to choose? She's learning how to like balance her time with making new friends, attending school, keeping up with schoolwork, and then wanting to play soccer and have fun and get to know people. And so that's why it's like figure it out, because you have to figure all this stuff out. And she's just really, really struggling with it, especially with like her home life, where she has, you know, a mother who's very like school, you know, all these extracurriculars are not going to do anything for you in the long run. She's just like, but I'm a kid and should be having fun. It was very, very well written. Sometimes, you know, I felt like it was a little too much going on, but boy, it was a really, really good book, and very much so underrated book. And the last one that I have on this is another Black romance, but this is a historical Black romance, which I think a lot of times when people think of historical romance, they think very much so Regency era, and it's I mean, in the past with historical romance, there's definitely been a lack of diversity, and so a lot of go-tos for people in terms of diverse historical romance, or you know, historical romance that features two Black characters, is usually Beverly Jenkins, in which I have read Beverly Jenkins. I absolutely adore her, but I think at the time I was looking for more Black authors that were writing historical romance that featured two Black characters, and so I ended up finding this book, which is part of a trilogy called His Treasure. This is a Men of Valor series by Kirute. I may be saying their name wrong, so I apologize, but this is about two main characters who who are in an arranged marriage, okay? And our heroine is pretty much like, this ain't it. I'm not finna do this. Like, you know, I was forced to marry you, but that's about as good as it's gonna get. And so they've been together for a year when this book starts. They've been together for a year, and people are starting to notice, like, okay, you've been together for a year, you've had no kids. Like, what is going on? Because in the village, it's kind of like, you know, what's going on here? Like, is there an issue? And they have not slept together in a year. And I was like, man, I commend you, because after a year, I probably would have been like, all right, maybe this is just not working out for the two of us, and this is just not what you want, not what I want, and so let's go our separate ways. But we start to see them kind of open up to each other, and I love the hero because he was so patient and so gentle with her. He's never forceful. He's never like, you must consummate this. It was not like that. I think for me, when I was reading him as a character, I felt like he just saw the bigger picture of their relationship, and he was willing to be patient with her and just get to know her and learn to love her in a way that was comfortable for her. And so you see that he's just very like, okay, if this is not what you want, I respect it. Like, if this is what you need space and time, I respect it. If you don't want me to touch you, that's fine, I respect it. Just that level of respect that he had for her and her ability to make decisions about herself, the autonomy of her body, like, he was just down for it 100%. And so when she begins to open up and really get to know him and see him for who he is and just how much he truly does care for her, when I tell you, when it was on and popping and it was hot, it was so good. And it was nice seeing them get to know each other and build that relationship, and how her trust started to grow in him, and how he had already just trusted and loved her from the beginning, but he just wanted her to be able to get to that point herself without him trying to force it on her or make any decisions for her. And it was just like, see, that's what you're supposed to do. This that level of respect that is supposed to be had in all relationships, okay? Like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So I really enjoyed it. I still need to read book 2 and 3 and check out more from this author, but I don't hear a lot of people always talking about this book, and so I needed to add it to this list. All right, y'all, so those are 10 more books that I think deserve a little bit more hype from Booktube. If there are any books that you think deserve a little bit more hype or recognition from the community, let me know in the comment box down below. As always, if you like this video, like I said in the beginning, you should give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Social media and all the relevant links will be down in the description box below, and I will be back with another video soon.